Arnold Toynbee is a very interesting character. In 1947, he wrote an essay called Islam in the West. And this essay is a very interesting essay because he talks about this awakening that's going to happen in the Muslim world, and he talks about fanaticism will arise out of three places probably: Afghanistan, Yemen, and Saudi Arabia. This is 1947, and he talks about how it'll probably be left to the Americans to deal with this problem. One of the things that he said, though, was that pan-Islamism is dormant, and he was a great historian, so he really knew about pan-Islamism, this kind of spirit. Yet we have to reckon with the possibility that the sleeper may awake. If ever the cosmopolitan proletariat of a westernized world revolt against Western domination, and this is a lot of what's happening right now. There's a lot of people, the Chinese are fed up, the Africans are fed up, the Indians are fed up. There's a lot of people just fed up with the Western power that's existed for so long. And he talked about that the Muslims could take up a kind of anti-Western leadership and evoking the militant spirit of Islam. And he talked about the possibility of a race war, which was very troubling. I don't agree with this vision. I think I would prefer to look at it like the Prophet ﷺ said, أَصْحَابُكُمُ الرَّوْمَ مَا دَامَ فِي الْعَيْشِ خَيْرٌ. Your companions are the Europeans as long as there's good in the world, which is related in Kanz al-Ummal. And Mustawrad al-Qarashi, he said once in the presence of Amr ibn al-As, he said, تَقُمَ السَّاعَةُ وَالرُّومُ أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ. The Prophet said the end of time won't come until the Europeans are the majority of people. And Rome is Europe. If you look at Rome's sacred history, all of it goes back to the Aeneid, to Romulus and Remus, to the foundation of the city of Rome. The Venerable Bede, in his history of England, says that the English people came from Rome. So the Prophet called them Ben al-Asfar, the white people. And they're a very powerful people historically. Their great gift was in organization. The Roman cohort was 12,000, and the Prophet said 12,000 people will never be defeated for lack of numbers. I suspect that he was looking at the Roman legion, that's where that number came from, because they were indestructible as a military force. But when Amr ibn al-As heard that hadith, he said, "Absir ma taqul." Think about what you're saying. He said, "Wallahi sami'tu min rasulillah." I heard it from the Messenger of God. And he said, if that's true, they have four beautiful qualities. He said, "Hum asra'u nas." He said, "Ahlamu nas 'inda fitna." They're the most forbearing of people during civil strife. And he said, "Wa asra'uhum ifaqatan ba'da musibah." And they're the quickest to recover from calamities. And then he said, "Awshakahum karratan ba'da farra." And they're the quickest to return to the battlefield after fleeing from the battlefield. And then he said, وَخَيْرُهُمْ لِمِسْكِينٍ وَيَتِيمٍ وَضَعِيفٍ. And they're the most kind to the poor, the orphans, and the handicapped. And then he said, وَخَامِسَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ جَمِيلَةٌ. And they have a fifth quality that's especially beautiful. أَمْنَعُ نَاسٍ مِنْ ظُلْمِ مُلُوكِهِمْ. They constrain their rulers from oppression more than any other people. So he was looking, if that's true, that the Europeans are the majority people, and Ahmed ibn Hanbal said, because the majority people would be imitating them. بِالتَّشَبُّهِ. So he said, if that's true, he chose to look at the good qualities of the people, and this is calling people to the better angels of their nature. This is what Martin Luther King did, and anybody who's ever really been able to effect change in this civilization has done it by calling the people to their higher selves, not calling them to their lower selves, or reminding them of how despicable they can be. And this is something that our Prophet was especially gifted at. مَنْ دَخَلَ بَيْتَ أَبِي سُفْيَانَ كَانَ آمِنًا. A man who fought him for over 20 years. It's amazing. He had the gift of winning over his enemies and making them his friends. It's much better than destroying your enemies or suffering a defeat at their hands. So I reject that vision. and would like to look at another possibility.